Thanks to Sana Skin Studio for supporting the No podcast. Sana is a skin studio that is shifting the relationship with your skin and your products through goal-driven facials, real guidance, and clean skincare. Stay tuned for our promo code so you can receive $25 off of your first facial at Sana Skin Studio. Welcome to the No podcast with me, Nikki Spo.
What is up, truth speakers and truth seekers? You are listening to The No, where it is not about knowing everything, but it's about coming to know ourselves. Today, I have a little surprise for you all. We are doing an episode within an episode. I recently had the privilege of being hosted on the hugely popular and top-performing podcast, Motherish, which is hosted by Comas and Pamela Silva. And with their permission, I am sharing our recording with my audience. You guys, I love their show. Two first-time working moms who keep it so real, and it was really such a pleasure to get to speak with them. I hope you enjoy our conversation, and I want to encourage you to check out the Motherish podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Let's go. It isn't about knowing everything. It's about coming to know ourselves. That's Nikki Spo's motto. And today, she's joining us to share some of the lessons she's learned by being vulnerable and opening up about her struggles, her wins, and her motherhood journey.
We read the books, we bought the things. We thought we were ready. And then life took our plans and changed them. I'm Karen, I'm Victoria's mommy, and I work in tech.
And I'm Pamela. I have a baby boy named Ford, and I'm a journalist. And although we're both first-time working moms, we're actually pretty different.
And that's totally okay. Because we both agree that our most important work is raising our kids. We really need each other and can only get through this together. Welcome to Motherish Moments. Hello, Pamela.
Hi, Karen.
You're looking...
What?
I'm going to make a comment about Pamela's outfit today.
Okay, no, I walked into the studio because I had to get dressed really, really quick because I have to rush to work after recording this. And I walk in and then when you look at yourself and you're like, what am I wearing? This is so I'm so confused by the entire outfit, but whatever, it's okay.
I think it's great. I think the only thing that throws me off is that there's a satiny vibe to it, but that's just me because I'm I don't do anything with shine, but because
I wore this once. I remember
shine.
when I actually wore it to a baby shower and I thought it was so cute and it was wild.
Obviously, you look wonderful.
I think that
anyway,
baby from the baby shower was 3.5, and I've never worn it again. But I think every time I put it on, the same thing happens.
So then you have to get rid of it. So you have to get rid of it. Okay. All right. So let's jump into our Motherish moment. Do you have one?
No, but I know you have one.
I'm ready to go. What the hell is up with age 4? I've had a really, I was bracing myself for terrible twos and whatever. And I was like, wow, she was wonderful. And then she turned 3, and I'm pretty sure this is on record in the episodes, but I was like, what? 3 was crazy, And then it was crazy for a minute, and then it wasn't. But right now, I'm going through it with 4 because she is very... obviously, she has a lot of opinions. She's got it, she knows what she wants. She's extremely verbal, but now there's eye rolling and so I'm no. Yes, express yourself, la-di-da, whatever, but also no, And it's
a little attitude,
a little. It's a lot, and it's anytime anything ends, it's a battle, right? So for example, we're at a friend's house. Okay, it's time to go to the friend's house because we don't want to overstay at a friend's house. That's weird. So I'm okay, now's a good time for us to go, whatever. I don't want to go. Just everything. And I'm I gave you a warning. I did the alarm, the 10-minute warning, the 5-minute warning, all the stuff that they're constantly this is what you should do. And then your child will know because you give them a choice. No, we leave now or we leave now, whatever. And it's just so hard. So I'm just really happy that she's back in school now because I feel maybe that's what she was missing. She was missing some of that structure. And it was just this loose-ended kind of never-ending hangout with mom time. So whatever. I just wanted to vent. And there's a lot of people that I know that have 4-year-olds right now that are oh man, me too. So I don't think it's just me. I think there's something in the force. But that's all. I just want to put it out there.
It's funny. I feel I tend to forget a lot of the tough moments because I go back, I'm oh, Forrest's so easy. He was so easy.
Oh my God, Pamela, no.
And then I'm I might just have amnesia. I don't know. I just feel, but he has his moments now. But my motherish moment is actually a really sweet one. So for a very, very long time, my son Ford, who is 3, almost 3.5, was very attached to me. When I was around, he's very independent. If I'm not there, he goes with whoever. He loves his teacher, loves his nanny, loves whatever. Everyone who's he's just on his own. He's great. When I show up in the picture, he's very needy. Like, he wants me to do everything. He wants me to like walk into the bath. He just wants me to do everything and everything for him. So it's draining. And then my mom, who was obsessed with him, like that's her only grandson, like really struggled like the first years, like just wanted to do more and wanted to be like, but every time I was there, he would like reject her and like just not be. When I was like completely different, like he's going through a major like Abu stage, and it's
good.
so sweet because she's so happy.
Great.
Yes,
Go.
great.
Be happy together. Goodbye.
Like when she spends the night with us, she'll be like, oh, "It's Abu here." Like she like, you know, and he'll run downstairs and come see her. So it's really sweet to see him really like love her. I mean, she's always loved her, but I'm saying like really ask for her and want to do stuff with her. And it's just like, because I know this like giving her so much life right now and joy that it's really, really sweet. So like their bond has like really taken like a turn for the better, and it's been great to witness it.
Good.
I know, and it's also helpful for me, right? To be like, oh, you want Abu? Yeah, where's Abu? You know, like I picked him up from school yesterday. And he'd be like, oh, where's Abu? And I was like, oh, she's at her house.
It's just me now.
It's just me. Like, but it's sweet, you know, because then it gets me excited to like when we go see her.
Oh, good.
So when we have Nikki share her motherish moment.
Hey, you guys. I love listening to this because I feel a lot less alone in this whole process of mothering and everything. As you guys know, I have 3 kids. I have a 10-month-old, a 3-year-old, and a 5-year-old. And my 3-year-old just like popped in while I was listening to you guys talk. And I'm like, I'm working. Right. That could have been the low that I presented if like stuff were to hit the fan. Like if he was like, oh, you're not actually working. And actually that went really well. I have some good highs. It's public info that my oldest son went through Burkitt lymphoma last year, and he went through chemotherapy, and then, you know, he's all clear. But like with that came a bunch of, you know, just other experiences, like taking extra time to do potty training, you know, because that took a backseat to a lot of things, and just like kind of reintegrating him into school and like making new friends and being open to new environments. And I had to say the first day of school yesterday for him, starting kindergarten at a new big school, we like knocked it out of the ballpark. And I say we because I want other parents to know that like I see them and I'm like, this is a we thing. Like it's not just like your kid going off into the world and doing it, because like you have to set them up for that success. So I definitely think parents should take ownership in their children's amazing experiences and not to beat themselves up over like the ones that go haywire and aren't so awesome at the same time. So my high of the week was a great first day of school for my shy but loving and amazing son. And really keeping all my kids alive.
I mean, that's always a win, right?
Yeah. Right? Like, I mean, my kids all had COVID last week. So that was a low, right? The 3 of them had COVID, the baby also, and I didn't get it. But my nanny got it, and she was out, and I was with them full time. And I'm like, I can't. I think I willed myself to not get COVID. So that was a low, but it was like ended on high, and we got it before school started. Yeah. So we're winning. We're winning at life right now.
As far as I'm concerned, that's a high. Like, that's good.
Me too.
Yeah.
I mean, like, the being sick part is definitely not awesome, and caring for 3 sick babies when you can't, like, do any play dates, right? And, like, you got to keep them separate from everybody else. It was definitely crazy in the house, but we made the best of it, and it was, like, actually good bonding time. And I got them to not sleep in my bed. I was like, you guys can't sleep with me because COVID.
You have cooties.
So now we're like on a roll of like not sleeping in mommy's bed.
So let me introduce Nikki. As I was mentioned, she is the host, creator of this very successful podcast called The Know with Nikki Spo. And I mean, I just wanted to just, you know, dig in and kind of like, I love when people have had such great conversations with other people and they have all these lessons and all these like great knowledge that was like, you know, share with them, but they want to share it with the world, you know? And I think this is a good opportunity to kind of share like what has been like one of those conversations that kind of like stuck with you and like, you know, just drop some knowledge that you think like everybody else should hear about.
Well, thank you so much for the introduction. I think all of the conversations are so valuable. Obviously, it's my show. I think that, right? Of course I do. But like, but I really do. Like, I have conversations that I want to be having because I feel like I benefit from them, and I feel like my target audience is like me, or like a younger version of me, right? Who really needed this information. And so I have conversations about all types of things. So like, I'm a sober woman. I identify as a sober person. I have conversations about addiction and recovery, of losing a parent, of being a parent of, you know, a child who is sick or going through something really serious. education. I'm a former teacher in the public school system, so I'm really, really passionate about that. You know, childhood sexual abuse, which is a really difficult topic to address, especially for parents, but these conversations are really important because it helps us, you know, like for those who are like actually tuning into those episodes and are like having the courage to like face it, it really puts the listener in a position to hear the hard things. And especially for parents, like maybe give them some insight about what to look for, what to listen for, what to be just aware of, you know, and like how to have hard conversations with our children as they continue to grow. I think those have been some of the most inspiring ones for me because it's a reminder to check in with my kids and to face it and face whatever instead of just like, you know, putting my head in the sand and kind of like being like, I'm not going to deal with it. Like, I don't want to talk about sex with my kids when they get old enough because it's uncomfortable for me. No, I need to like tackle those things, you know, and have the conversations with my children as they're little. Like, what are we talking about in elementary school, as they get into elementary school, as they get older, you know, about how to be a human being, right? And hopefully be a good one.
It's wild that there's so many topics, right? Especially within parenting, but that one specifically, I discovered recently that causes a little bit, I don't want to say like a divide, but like people, parents, mothers specifically have very specific kind of like outlooks on it. Like they kind of like you come equipped with like, this is my perspective on it. And then when you run into someone who has a slightly different perspective, it's kind of like, what? You know, I've never been through any sexual abuse, luckily, but I feel very strongly about it because there are people in my extended family that have been through that. And so I sometimes, you know, battle with like being extremely overprotective with my daughter, but I'm also like, this came up I was in the car with some of the mom friend group, and one of them was like, oh my God, I can't wait till like all of our kids have like sleepovers and da-da-da. And I was like, in my head, I was like, no, Victoria, like, and I was like, let me just hit it now. Like, Victoria's not going to do any sleepovers. And so they were like, but we're friends and we know each other. And I was like, yeah. And that's amazing. And I love you guys. And we have a wonderful friendship and we can hang out like till whatever time you guys want. But then she's going to come and sleep in my house. And it's an opinion I have. And it's based on things that I feel strongly about. Then it brought up this whole conversation separately with the mom groups, not in front of the kids, whatever, with my friends. And they were like, but you know us. I'm like, you never know anyone. I don't believe that you do. But it's hard conversations with my child. Like, I'm like, when I give her a bath, or, you know, if Juan's giving her a bath, it's different. But I talk to her about, you know, like, this is only you, only me. Like, that's it. You know, I try to educate her at a level that is appropriate, but I do feel that you open that can of worms. And like you said, they're hard conversations for a lot of people, but it's so important. So a lot of those things that you talk about in your podcast, I think are.
I also think it's important when people put their own personal perspective because they have their own personal journeys, but a lot of people are not confident enough to be vulnerable, right? Like, I think one of the things that I admire the most about your podcast and the content that you're creating is that you're very vulnerable, you're very open, you're very transparent in terms of like, was there a little hesitation at the beginning as to what can I share, what I shouldn't share, or was it maybe advice for you that it was healthier for you to be open and vent about certain things?
Well, thank you so much, because it did take a lot of courage to get to that space. I think at first when I was starting the platform, I was like, I don't know that I should be sharing my business or like putting it out there. And like, I do think that there's this thing of like, I don't like to overshare in the sense that like I need people to feel sorry for me or feel like, oh no, poor Nikki or whatever. That's not what it is. I just really believe in the power of community and the power of like shared experience having an impact on people. And I think that's what it is. And I think that like it's really easy to look at my life from the outside, and you can go to my Instagram and be like, oh wow, she has all this life. Oh, my curated social media looks like, right?
Yeah.
And think, oh no, this woman hasn't been through anything difficult in her life. And it's not a competition of like who's been through the most shit. Sorry, I don't know if we're allowed to curse on the show. Who's been through the most stuff? Like, who's been through the most trauma? It's not a trauma competition, but I'm saying like I've been through some stuff that I want to talk about, and I think that like it's relevant to people. And like being able to put a face to an experience that you might be able to identify with, I think is like just hugely, hugely powerful. So I do think it's an important part of my platform specifically, and something that I take really, I don't take it for granted. And I think it's a responsibility of sorts to be intentional about how I share, the way I share, and what I share, so that it can have a meaningful impact on my audience and hopefully like help one person.
For example, for me, what spoke a lot was the relationship that sometimes we have with our own mothers, and then eventually how that could shape us and create fears about, even before we become mothers, like, am I going to be this type of mother? Am I going to do this? Am I going to make the same mistakes? So either, and I always feel like people either want to, exactly imitate the relationship they have with their own mother, or they kind of want to like make an evolution and kind of like make some major changes into what they were brought up with. So I thought that was a very important topic for you, to discuss and open up about.
It definitely was. That one was really hard. My mom passed away last year, and that was a very complex relationship. I had been estranged from her for many years because it was a very toxic environment for me to participate in. And like, I always come back to this idea, like, and this is years worth of therapy that I had done, right? Is that like, when I was a child, I didn't have a choice. And as an adult, I have a choice. And like, not a lot of people understand that. But as an adult, like as we grow, we heal, and we evolve, and we live in the real world, like we carry the parts of us and the experiences we had into our adulthood, right? And that shapes our personality in so many ways. And it's really easy to live in a fight or flight mode as an adult if you've experienced trauma. And that's kind of like where I was living, and I couldn't get past it if I continued to have that toxic relationship like existing in my life. So I had to really pull myself back and go through my own healing journey through that. But there's an author, Bethany Webster, who wrote a book called The Mother Wound, and it was really life-changing for me. And for me, I didn't want to be anything like my mom, and I was becoming her, especially with my drinking. And, I identify as an alcoholic, and I was becoming the worst parts of her that I didn't like. I was becoming those things, and that's not to say that my mom was a fully bad person either. Like my mom, I don't think anybody is fully anything. I think that people are multifaceted, and there's ebbs and flows in life, and like who you are at one part of your life versus who you are at a different part of your life. I don't think that my mom was fully bad. I think my mom was a person who had a lot of bad things happen to her, and she did not have adequate resources or interest in like getting the help that she needed. And it doesn't excuse a lot of the things that happened, but as a grown person who's done a lot of the work myself, I empathize with her today, and she's no longer with me, but I empathize with her experiences. And fortunately, I do have the resources and the knowledge and the education and like the self-awareness to like go get help when I've needed help.
This conversation is so good, but before we keep going, I want to take a minute to thank our sponsors, Sana Skin Studio. The best way for me to describe Sana is that it feels like coming home. Unlike traditional facials, Sana's facials are rooted in education, and I love this so much. Every experience I've had at Sana has been a chance to learn more about my skin and its needs. I love that the facials are effective while also being accessible enough to be a monthly ritual rather than a yearly splurge. I'm honored to be able to provide our audience with a promo code. Use the code THENOGLOW for $25 off of your first facial at Sana when booking via sanaskinstudio.com.
I was talking recently with my husband about generational trauma. There's like all these things that they're like, oh, why are millennial parents so tired? And it's because we're breaking so much generational trauma while we educate our children. And there's an anecdote recently. My daughter slept over at my parents' house, and she doesn't do that often. It's like very much on a like, we needed this today because, my husband was out of town, whatever. And, my mom, I could describe her as someone who has, similar to you in the sense of had like a very complicated dynamic with her mom, was estranged for a while and then came back, but with lots of boundaries that, to protect herself. And so when she became a mom or she found out she was pregnant with me, she was terrified because she was like, this is too much. I know what this is, and I don't want to, mess it up and everything. So she's a wonderful mother, and I think she has done so much work to kind of improve. My dad is a really loving, Latin man with, doesn't communicate a lot of feelings. Like, he's like textbook, like, of his generation. And he tries to evolve with like the new things, but it's a challenge for him, right? So when Victoria slept over their house, it was because we were at a gay wedding. And that morning I had kind of had like a refresh conversation with Victoria because she was like, where are you going? And I was like, oh, Gabriel is getting married. And she goes, he's marrying a man, right? And I'm like, yes. And that's amazing because you can marry whoever you want and love is the only thing that matters, blah, blah, blah. So that night when Victoria was at my parents' house, my mom is like showing her my Instagram stories and she's like, look, there's Victoria and that's the wedding and da-da-da. And my dad was like, well, don't you think that the normal thing, whatever, and he started using terms that are not the way that we are educating her. And my mom was like, no, we need to respect what Karen and her husband are doing with their child. And that's a different generation. And we're breaking things so that her generation, Victoria's generation, can be liberated of so many things that have caused so much pain and trauma for people in history, So it's exhausting to do a lot of these things, but I think very valid that this kind of like wave of, and I think every family, they do what they can, right? Sometimes over the years, but I think this generation specifically is very interesting because we are dealt with a very particular kind of hand of cards that is quite challenging, I think.
Absolutely. And I actually think it's pretty full circle about what we were talking about earlier when it comes down to like you not letting Victoria have sleepovers, right? And I think a lot of it comes down to the relationship that we have with our children and the trauma that we are doing, the trauma recovery work that we're doing within ourselves to pass new information onto them and new experiences and ways to deal with emotions and everything. And like ultimately what it comes down to is like we're not going to be able to control what anybody else does around our kids. We can't. Like, we hope that like the people who love us and are in our lives, like grandparents and other relatives, maybe close friends, that they are doing things in the way that we would want them to be done, right? But the reality is that we can't control anything else that happens outside of my relationship with my children.
Yeah.
Right? I can't control what happens at school. I can't control what grandpa says or, doesn't say or et cetera, or what happens at another home. But I can do my best to try to educate my children, for example, when it comes to sexual abuse, about their body parts, right? Not using pet names, using the name of the body part, educating my children about what they might be presented with and options for how to deal with these things, asking children, because they're so much smarter than we give them credit for, to reflect on, do you think love is love? What do you think about love? What does love feel like for you? Do you want everybody to have that? Mm-hmm. Offering them opportunities to reflect so that when they step outside of our homes, they are so rooted in who they are that they're not as easily shaken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not that like other people do these things on purpose. I mean, people do things because they just do them. Like this is what they know to do. And it's not even intentional or malicious.
Yeah. Yeah, agree.
It's interesting you mentioned the thing about educating our children when it comes to like, the difficult issues. So I work with an organization called Amigos for Kids. It confirmed that the best way to prevent is an organization that focuses on preventing child abuse. To prevent it is, educating the parents. A lot of these families either don't have the resources, don't have the education. Obviously, no one wants their child to get hurt. So what we did is they realized that if you educated the parents or gave them the resources, the risk of their child being a victim of child abuse dramatically decreased, right? So now they do these workshops and they educate the parents, and because you never think, you always feel like, because these children, it's a lot for them to take that information. But if you have parents who are conscious of what's going on, who are more aware of certain things, who are like speaking to them and giving them the terms they need to know and all that stuff, and obviously you educated children, but mainly they found that the root problem was parents, by no ill intention either, were too busy working more than one job, or were like leaving the care of the children to other people because of need. So it's interesting how like there's a lot of stuff that really, really falls on us and like what we're providing to our children.
Well, totally. We can't educate our children if we're not educated about it ourselves.
For sure.
I also wanted to kind of like discuss a little bit of like, you talk a lot about not losing yourself after motherhood, and I wanted to know like if each postpartum experience was different. What did you learn from each of them? And I know everyone says, we only have one, Karen has one, I have one. They'll say get better the second time around. It's completely different. Like what did you learn in the journey? And like, what does it mean to have 3, you know?
Honey, I have been losing myself and rediscovering myself my whole life, man. It's been like the biggest, it's been my life's work. I'll tell you that. Like, honestly, seriously, I lost myself so many times, and it wasn't just before I had kids. It was like finding myself in different relationships throughout my life that I was like not being true to myself, and you know, like or making myself less than in different scenarios. I don't know, not any one specific, but in so many different scenarios. You could take my experience as being a professional dancer and like the box that I was trying to fit in, you know, to do that with my life. And I think it's been a constant effort of self-discovery and not losing my essence, right? And I've run up again, I've hit a bunch of walls when I'm like, oh no, like this doesn't feel right for me. Like I don't feel like I'm being true to myself. Mayday, short circuit, like crumble, right? And like all of these moments that I've crumbled and rebuilt, but specifically after I had my first child was like the most difficult. It was like the biggest shock. I was not ready. I was not ready emotionally. I don't think that my environment was one that was, I don't think my environment felt safe to me in that like I had a baby nurse, which I was really grateful to have a baby nurse, right? Like I should feel so lucky and so privileged to have a baby nurse and be able to afford this type of care because they are not cheap. But I remember feeling very judged by this person. I felt like she was very militant with me as a mother. And I think it like greatly impacted like my experience being a new mom the first time around, you know? And so a lot of that, I got pregnant after I had my first son. I got pregnant just after his first birthday. So I gave birth to my second son 20 months after I had my first son. And I was like, again, like terrified, like PTSD from the first time around. And it was hard, but it wasn't as hard because I knew what to expect. I definitely knew what to expect. And I also curated a team with a lot more intention. Like I set boundaries right from the beginning. I was like, this is what I'm doing. Like, you don't get to have a say in this, but you get to have a say in that. And I'm not talking about like with my partner. I'm talking about like with people that were helping me with the kids, right? Like this is how this is going to go. And then COVID happened, you know, and so that was a whole different experience with child rearing, but it was also when I got sober. So I learned so much in that time. And I was only 4 months postpartum when I decided to get sober. So I would say that I was like definitely spiraling in a way, like after my second born, because I was really, really leaning into my alcohol consumption as a way to cope. And I was a lot happier when I found sobriety, and I continued to get happier and happier. And that's not to say that I'm perfect by any means or by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not fully healed. That's something I just talking about recently on my show, is that I am not fully healed. So like I don't think anybody ever is. I think it's a life's work. I think it's an ongoing process, and I reserve the right to be wrong still. You know, I make mistakes. I'm going to mess up because I'm still a work in progress. So by the time my third child came along, a daughter, I boundaried up. I knew that I had my secret weapon personally of sobriety in my pocket, you know, my relationship with God, which I found through my sobriety. And it's been the best postpartum experience yet.
That's amazing.
I don't know if it's because it's number 3 or like, it has to be like a combination of all of it, just life experience, motherhood experience, you know, becoming the more of the woman that I envision myself being, like being more true to myself more and more and more, and like staying rooted and staying grounded and staying authentic, and, you know, not tolerating things that I don't accept in my life, you know, and I try to do that with love and grace, you know, and I don't always get it right because sometimes I want to bite people's head off.
So obviously your first 2 were boys. And when you found out you were having a girl, how did that feel, given that, you know, I think you're a force as a woman. You lean into this heavily and you support many, like you uplift women in a lot of your conversations and stuff. And so raising a girl, I think raising boys is equally important because, you know, we coexist. But I'm wondering, like, what did you feel when you found out, like, what were your thoughts when you found out that you were going to have a girl?
I was so happy. You know, when I found out I was first pregnant with my firstborn, I was terrified to have a girl. I was like, don't let it be a girl. Like, I can't do it. I can't do it. With everything that I've been through, it was like meant to be. Like the universe gave me 2 boys because I needed to know. I needed to like have a soft intro to motherhood, even though I don't think it was a soft intro. I thought it was really, really rocky.
Yeah.
Before having a girl, you know, and I feel like I'm now, as a human being, as a woman, I am in a place to be like, I can raise a young woman.
Yeah.
Like I can do this. I feel confident. I feel competent. I feel empowered to do this, where I don't know that I would have been in that space 5 years ago.
It's crazy how timing
I was
is
so happy. I was excited. I was like, I got this. I was like, I was like, God knows that I'm ready.
Yeah.
Like, I was like,
I feel like
she, whatever you believe in, knows that I was ready for this.
I feel like raising girls push us in different ways. This week I had an experience, for me, one of the important things with Victoria is like, I don't ever want to, I work hard on not trying to speak poorly about myself. Like my internal narrative has always been like not great. And over the years I've like gotten stronger and stuff with that. But with her, it's different because like with a lot of other people, you can hide it. You can put it away. You can, like you said, like when you're trying to like fit yourself into the box or whatever that you think. The other day we were having a dance party and I was introducing her to only the music, not the music videos of Britney Spears and Destiny's Child. And I was like, this is so fun. And we're having just dancing, whatever at home. And she goes, I was wearing like a big t-shirt and like shorts, like biker shorts, whatever. And she goes, Mommy, but you have to wear something different. She's like, I want you to wear something that's like here so I can like see like, and you can like look cool. And I was like
a crop top.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, like I don't do that. But like, I'm like, this is a really important moment. I need to like act like what you say you do, like what you say, now it's time to prove it. And so I was like, okay, let's do it. And I was like,
you're like snip to the shirt.
So I like grabbed the shirt and I did this like tie thing that I don't think I've done since like middle school, where you like tuck it under your bra and like you pull it through the middle or whatever. And I was like, yeah. And I felt so uncomfortable, but I was like, okay. She's like, now we dance. And she goes, wow, Mommy, you look beautiful. And I was like, it was rough because you want to show them, like, anyway, that's why I asked about raising a girl, because as she gets older, I believe girls challenge you in ways that boys challenge you in a different way, but we're the same, right? And so the stuff that as women we try to like be discreet about or hide or whatever, when you have the responsibility of raising a future woman, you can't hide it as well, especially if you want them to be better and feel better. So anyway, that was the point of my question, because I'm living that now as she gets older, and I have to not only talk the talk, but walk the walk. And the walking the walk is so much harder than talking the talk,
I just I'm sending you so much love, because like it takes so much courage to like embody all of it.
Thank you.
And you're doing it, I want my daughter to see me in an environment where I'm cherished and loved, so that she will be cherished and loved. Mm-hmm. And so I'm creating that reality in my life so that she can witness it and she knows how she should be treated and cared for. And,
it's so much easier said than done, right? I feel like a lot of us, in theory, we want our kids to see us happy and to like see us like feel good about ourselves and feel like, but it's something that is challenging. I think there's a part of us that like are not, I don't even want to say selfish, right? But we're just so used to kind of like doing this on our own and like forget how impactful it could be for our children, so I really do think, and I just wanted to kind of take a moment to say that it's not as easy as it sounds, right? Obviously we don't want our kids to like pick up on negative stuff or be like, or see us sad or see us in not in a good season, but it does take a lot of work to kind of consider them, and we talked about this in an episode where we're so careful, right? Like you tend to be, when you're carrying your child, when you're pregnant with your child, you're so, I don't want to eat this, I can't do that, oh, I can't use that product. But like, we should treat ourselves the same way when we birth them, right? We should just love ourselves and be so careful. And so when they tell you like, oh, don't cry when you're pregnant, it's like the baby feels it, or don't whatever. Well, they feel it too when they're not in your womb, And we need to keep that mentality of being like so protective of ourselves and what we expose ourselves to through their lifetime.
I also cry in front of my kids.
Same.
I like let them see me cry, and I just tell them that it's okay to cry.
Yeah.
Especially my boys, because I want them to know that it's okay to have real big feelings. And I say, everybody gets sad. This analogy that I have is like, I am like the blue sky that sometimes has gray clouds, and the clouds pass, and sometimes they're white clouds, and sometimes they're wispy clouds. But like these feelings come and go, and it's okay to cry, and it's okay to feel your feelings. The big thing is that we move forward and we work through them, and then we find a happy day again.
When Forrest sees me cry, he still asks, Mommy, are you sad? Like, he knows I'm sad because he knows the tears, like he's associated already with like sad. But I kind of like that he asks because it opens up to a conversation. I'm like, yes, Mommy is sad.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's sad, but it's okay. I'm going to be better.
there's also with Victoria, something that has come up a lot is like crying when you're happy, because we are, I guess in my household, we are also like happy criers. And so there was an amazing moment for me as her mother in her life where it's like silly, but it's not. So when Argentina won the World Cup, Juan, my husband, literally was on the floor crying, like of joy. So she like hugged him on the floor. I'm crying again. She hugged him on the floor and she started crying too. And she goes, "We're crying. Why are we crying?" And he goes, "We're crying because of joy." He's like, "You can cry from joy." And I was like, "Good job, Dad." I was like, good. So now she has this like full spectrum of like feelings and the things that come with it, and tears and ways to express it. She's big in her feelings. Like, she cried during the Ninja Turtles movie. Hello. Like she cried when the dad rat was like alone, but now she wants to go back so she can relive it. But it was amazing to show like that, what you said about like, you know, there's this whole, I think especially in our generation, like women, like we come out to the workforce, it's like, we can do it all. And it's like, actually, no, man, like sometimes we're really tired and sometimes it's really hard. And sometimes like it's okay to not do everything and not be all the things all the time. And so like, I think that's going to what we were talking about earlier. It's like, this is why our parenting journey is so exhausting, because we're doing all the things with them. We're like showing them deep-rooted stuff.
Going back to raising girls and raising boys, when I was looking into schools for 4, like there was one school I considered for a second, and it was like, well, there's only one class, so you're stuck with that class, you know, for 8 years or 5 years or whatever it is. And I remember the feedback was, well, if you have a boy, then that's not a problem, because boys just figure it out, they play together, it's fine, blah, blah, blah. Like, but girls, everyone who's had a girl who had that, you know, it's challenging because they tend to like create cliques at an earlier age. They tend to like be more conflicting and like little groups and like, more isolating, and it's tougher for little girls because they're emotionally more mature than boys in terms of like socializing and creating groups and all that stuff. But what I was gonna say, I think it's also important to kind of remind them that boys and girls, kind of like not that the same, but like to be inclusive. You know what I mean? To kind of be like,
I think boys experience exclusion also. I've noticed that, like in having 2 boys, you know, I've noticed exclusion, and like we talk about what it feels like to feel excluded and how we don't want to do that to other people. You know, I literally just had a conversation with my son on the way to school. I said, you know, if you're feeling lonely and sad, what can you do? And he's like, oh, I can take a deep breath. And I was like, you know, yep, you can. And I said, what else? And he said, I can go be a friend to someone else. And I was like, that's right. You know, like if you feel lonely and sad or scared, you can go try. This is what I try to do in my life. I don't do it perfect, but I try to do it. Is like when I feel sad, you know, I try to go be of service to somebody else and help somebody else. And it takes me out of myself and into being a helping hand to someone else. And I think we can teach that to our children, boys and girls equally. They experience life and they replicate what they see. Mm-hmm. And it's harder as they get older. You know, the little kids, little problems, big kids, big problems, right? Yeah. Like, but ultimately, again, I think it comes back to giving them the opportunity to become so rooted in who they are as a spirit, as a person, that they become less shakeable outside of the homes that we're creating for them.
We're laying the foundation. Nikki, this was great.
Hey, I thought it was great too. You know, I'm so grateful. I'm really, really so grateful.
I wanted to close it off really quick with, I know you have a lot of women, and I think we talked about this, like sometimes for women, it's really hard to create new friendships, you know, when you're in adulthood, like these new friends and these new circles, and kind of finding a good support team. Like what has been key for you? What has worked for you when it comes to building a community and building like a sisterhood of other women?
Honesty for me has become like a pillar in my life. And I used to be like team no new friends. Like I used to be like super no new friends. I was like, I don't want anybody new in my life. I got enough friends. I was born and raised here in Miami. I don't need any new friends. I got my friends from childhood and whatever. Now I'm like, I want to befriend everybody. And that's not to say that I want everybody to be like my closest friend, like in my life where I tell all my deepest, darkest secrets to, but I want to be a person who you were like, she cheers me on. She makes me feel good. I like being around her energy. And I think like just being honest and positive, you know, like choosing to see the good in people. And that's hard because like I get pissed off all the time and I'm like, what happened? Why did that happen? Or I take things personally. But I think just showing up as a good version of yourself, choosing to see the best in people, giving people the benefit of the doubt while also setting boundaries for yourself. I think that the two need to coexist. But I love making new friends now. I'm like very much team new friends these days. I love women. I love sisterhood and camaraderie. And I think that the more we do that with each other, like the more other women see it and the more comfortable they feel doing it.
I love that. I like that. Let's close it off in that high note.
This podcast was brought to you by Sana Skin Studio. Be sure to use my code, TheNoGlow, for $25 off of your first facial at Sana when booking via sanaskinstudio.com. More than a skin studio, Sana is a movement towards healthier skin and self-love. Thank you so much for listening to The Know. If you loved this episode, go ahead and share it with a friend. Words are so powerful, and someone may need to hear what we covered today. And if you really loved this episode, please take a moment to rate the show and leave a review. Your comments are so important and valued, and they give other listeners insight on what to expect on The Know. You can connect with me personally via Instagram at Nikki Spo and The Know with Nikki Spo. My hope for you today is that you are fearless in looking inward so that you can be your highest, most authentic self and go after the life of your dreams.